Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and you'll never miss a story again. There are moments in life that divide your story into two parts, before and after. Mine happened on a regular Tuesday afternoon, in the house I called home, with the woman I called my wife. My name is Daniel, 38 years old, married for nearly 10 years. I worked in corporate operations, nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave us a comfortable life. My wife, Megan, was a freelance graphic designer, mostly working from home. She was creative, thoughtful, and sharp. At least, that's the version of her I knew, or thought I knew. We'd been through the typical ups and downs. Career changes, family pressures. A rough patch after a miscarriage 2 years ago. But we'd always managed to find our way back to each other, or so I believed. The company I worked for had just gone through a restructuring. My previous manager, who I respected, was let go, and in came someone new, Ryan. Charismatic, younger than me by a few years, overly confident in the kind of way that rubbed a lot of us the wrong way. But the higher-ups loved him. Smooth talker, dressed like a fashion ad, always networking more than working. I tried not to judge him too fast, people deserve a chance, but something about him felt calculated, slick. The type who looks you in the eye and smiles while stepping on your shoulders to climb higher. Megan met him once, at the company's spring dinner party. She said he was charming, even joked about how he seemed like someone from a Netflix show. I laughed it off, thought nothing of it. That week I was scheduled for a 3-day training seminar in Chicago. I wasn't thrilled, it meant missing our date night tradition on Thursdays, but I promised Megan I'd make it up to her with a weekend getaway. She seemed fine with it. Kissed me goodbye that morning like everything was normal. But things changed. Halfway through the first day of training, we were told the final 2 sessions had been postponed due to a power outage in the building. So they sent us home early. I didn't tell Megan right away. I thought I'd surprise her. Maybe grab flowers on the way, cook her dinner before she got out of her home office. A small gesture to say, "Hey, I'm here, I missed you." So that's what I did. I picked up her favorite lilies, swung by our favorite bakery, and drove home with a quiet kind of excitement. I parked around the corner, just to make the surprise more dramatic, and crept into the house with a smile on my face. But the moment I stepped in, that smile vanished. Something was off. I heard music playing faintly upstairs. Music Megan never usually listened to. Upbeat pop, the kind that played in clubs. The hallway had a jacket I didn't recognize thrown over the banister. Male shoes, polished and expensive looking, sat near the door. I froze. My first thought wasn't even infidelity. It was confusion. A client? A friend? Did she forget to tell me someone was over? But then I heard it. A laugh. A voice. A voice I recognized. Ryan. I didn't hesitate. I walked up the stairs, quiet but firm, my heart hammering in my chest. The door to our bedroom was ajar, and there they were, in our bed, my wife, and my boss. Time slowed. The kind of slow where every detail becomes painfully sharp. Megan's eyes widened in horror the moment she saw me. Ryan scrambled, pulling the blanket around himself, his expression shifting from arrogance to panic in a second. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't throw anything. I just stood there holding a bag of pastries and a bouquet of lilies, watching everything I thought was real collapse in front of me. Then I set the flowers and the bag down on the dresser, turned around, and walked out. I didn't say a word, I didn't have to, down the stairs, out the door, into my car. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I tried to process what I'd just witnessed. My heart wasn't just broken, it was stunned, numb. I drove to a park a few blocks away, sat in my car, watched people, walking their dogs, laughing with their kids, living normal lives. My world had just imploded, and outside nothing had changed. Eventually, I went to a friend's house, James, a coworker who knew me better than most. I told him everything. He didn't say much at first, just listened. Then he said something that shifted my entire mindset. You have leverage. Don't waste it on anger. Use it wisely. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just personal. It was professional. Ryan was my boss. This wasn't some anonymous affair. It was a betrayal that touched every part of my life. And if I handled this right, I could do more than just walk away. I could take back control. The next morning, I went to HR. I asked to speak with a senior officer. No emotions, no accusations, just facts. I told them what happened. That Ryan, my direct supervisor, had engaged in an inappropriate relationship with my spouse. That it created a hostile work environment. That it breached multiple ethics clauses in our company's code of conduct. I showed them proof. Messages, photos, timeline inconsistencies. They listened, took notes, promised a thorough investigation. And I knew, based on the company's legal exposure, that they would act fast. After that meeting, I blocked Megan's number. I needed space. She flooded my inbox with apologies, explanations, desperate pleas for a conversation. But I couldn't do it, not yet. Maybe not ever. I contacted a lawyer, explained everything, both the infidelity and the workplace power imbalance. He said I had a strong case, that if I wanted to push this, the company might offer a settlement. That I could file a formal grievance not just internally, but externally through a legal complaint. So I did. It wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries, dignity, consequences. The company responded within days. Ryan was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The legal team reached out to my attorney to discuss a private resolution. Meanwhile, Megan sent a handwritten letter. She said she'd made a mistake, that it wasn't serious, that it was a moment of weakness, that she didn't want to lose our life together. She begged for a second chance. But when someone betrays you that deeply, it's not just about trust, it's about respect. And once that's gone, love can't survive on its own. I returned home 2 weeks later, not to reconcile, but to reclaim what was mine. She was there, waiting, eyes swollen, suitcase by the door. I told her calmly, clearly, that I'd be filing for divorce, that I'd handle things respectfully but firmly, that she needed to leave, and that we'd communicate through legal counsel from now on. She cried. I didn't. Not because I didn't feel, but because I was done bleeding for someone who stabbed me in my own home. I changed the locks. I removed every photo of us from the walls. I took back my space, my peace, my future. What happened next? Well, that's the part that surprised everyone. But that's for the next chapter. I didn't expect healing to feel like this. Quiet. Awkward. Almost like learning how to live in your own skin again. The first few weeks after Megan left were strange. The house felt unfamiliar, like I was living in a hotel designed by someone who used to know me. Her shoes weren't by the door. Her coffee mug wasn't on the counter. The scent of her shampoo no longer lingered in the bathroom. Everything was still and untouched. But it was mine again, and that meant something. I kept my head down during those days, went to work, met with my lawyer, tried to piece together a plan for what came next. The company had launched a full investigation into Ryan, and while they didn't update me on every detail, it was clear they were taking it seriously. Too many HR policies had been breached, too much liability on their end to ignore it. They offered me time off with pay while the situation played out. I accepted it. I needed the space. Funny thing about betrayal. You expect it to come with screaming matches, shouting in parking lots, or emotional outbursts. But for me, it came with silence. A numb, sobering kind of silence that followed me around like a shadow. It gave me time to think. About who I had become. About what I had allowed. You see, it's easy to assume that someone cheats because the other person failed. That maybe I didn't do enough, say enough, notice enough. But the truth. Infidelity isn't about a lack of love. It's about a lack of respect, and once I saw that clearly, I realized I had to change how I respected myself too. So I started doing small things. Things just for me. I signed up for therapy. I'd never tried it before, but I figured if there was ever a time to get some clarity, this was it, and it helped more than I expected. Sitting across from someone whose job was to listen, to reflect back the pieces I couldn't see myself, it gave me a kind of peace I hadn't known I was missing. I started cooking again, real meals, nothing fancy, but made with care. Cooking had always been Megan's thing, and I'd let myself believe I didn't belong in that space. But I found something meditative about it, chopping vegetables, timing sauces, setting the table for one. I got back into running. Every morning before sunrise. Cold air, empty streets, nothing but my breath and the sound of my feet hitting the pavement. It cleared my head in ways words couldn't. Megan's texts eventually slowed, then stopped altogether. Her lawyer contacted mine. The divorce moved forward. No dramatic scenes, no shouting matches, just paperwork, signatures, and a quiet end to something I once thought was permanent. Meanwhile, the investigation at work took a turn. Ryan was suspended indefinitely. The HR team found evidence that this wasn't his first boundary crossing. Apparently, he'd gotten involved with a junior employee at a previous company, but the complaint had been brushed under the rug. Now, with formal evidence from my case, they couldn't ignore it. My lawyer advised that we proceed with the legal complaint, not to drag it out, but to hold the company accountable for allowing someone like Ryan into a leadership position without proper oversight. And that's where everything changed, because when you take a stand, people notice. Quietly, employees from my company started reaching out. Some I barely knew, others who'd been around for years. They told me stories about how they'd been mistreated, disrespected, passed over, and how Ryan in particular had created a toxic environment for anyone who didn't play his game. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about accountability. A few weeks later, I received an offer. The company proposed a formal settlement agreement. They offered compensation, a clear statement of disciplinary action against Ryan, and a chance for me to return under a new reporting structure. But I declined. Not out of spite, but because I had outgrown the place. Somewhere between walking in on my wife and walking out of that company, I had changed. I wasn't the man who tolerated nonsense anymore. I wasn't interested in jobs where I was just a cog in someone else's ladder. I wanted something different, so I started building it. With the severance payout and the settlement from the company, I had enough to take a few months off. I used the time to launch something I'd always talked about but never had the guts to pursue. A small consulting agency for operational logistics, my niche, my lane, my terms. It started slow, just a couple clients, some old connections who gave me a chance. But word got out. I worked hard, delivered results. And before I knew it, I had something real on my hands. Meanwhile, Megan's lawyer reached out again, this time about property division. We agreed on everything fairly quickly. She took her car, some savings, and left the house to me. I wanted to be free of the drama, and she, to her credit, didn't try to drag anything out. Maybe she realized the damage was already done. Maybe she just wanted to move on too. We finalized the divorce in early fall. The last time I saw her was at the signing. She looked different. Not in a bad way, just older, worn, like someone who had realized too late what they'd given up. She didn't cry, she didn't argue. She just signed her name, slid the papers across the table, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Daniel, for all of it." I nodded. I didn't have the energy for revenge or resentment. I just wanted peace. And that's what I got. In the months that followed, my business grew. I hired my first employee, moved into a small office space, started waking up each morning without a pit in my stomach or a lie to pretend I didn't see. People ask me sometimes, do I miss her? It's a complicated question. I miss who I thought she was. I miss the version of myself who believed we were solid. But do I want her back? Not for a second, because now I see clearly. The man I was before would have forgiven too quickly, ignored too much, and buried the pain until it poisoned him. But the man I became, the one shaped by betrayal and rebuilt through quiet discipline, he's not willing to carry anyone who doesn't value him. That shift is permanent. There was one unexpected moment, though. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I received a message on LinkedIn from Ryan. I stared at the notification for a while before opening it. It was short. Just one sentence. "I hope you're happy with the damage you caused." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. He'd shown me exactly who he was, someone who blamed others for the consequences of his own choices. And me? I had no interest in sparring with a man still trying to live in the shadows of his ego. I blocked him, deleted the message, and got back to work. Because the best revenge isn't proving a point. It's living your life in such a way that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. And that's exactly what I plan to do. A full year passed since that Tuesday afternoon, the day I came home early thinking I'd surprise my wife and walked into the biggest wake-up call of my life. 12 months, 52 weeks of rediscovery, rebuilding, and reflection. Sometimes it felt like the longest year of my life. Other times, like it flew by in a blink. My consulting business had grown beyond anything I imagined when I first started. What began as a laptop and a few spreadsheets in my kitchen had turned into a full-fledged operation. 3 employees, 4 steady clients, a modest but modern office in the city. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. But success wasn't the only thing that changed. I changed too. It's hard to explain unless you've lived it. But betrayal forces you to see yourself through a different lens, not as a victim, not as a broken person, but as someone who got burned and still stood back up. I didn't carry bitterness. I carried boundaries. I didn't chase revenge. I chased better. Some people wondered how I didn't completely break down, how I handled everything without screaming matches or social media drama. The truth? I made a decision early on. I wasn't going to let their chaos become my identity. That choice saved me. It wasn't always easy. There were hard days, lonely ones, nights when I questioned everything. But I kept going. One run at a time, one client at a time, one moment of self-respect at a time. And slowly it added up to something solid. Then came the letter. It was from HR, my old company. They wanted to inform me that the internal investigation into Ryan had concluded. He was officially terminated for professional misconduct and violations of corporate ethics policies. Apparently, after his suspension, additional employees had come forward with their own experiences. Turns out my case wasn't isolated. It was the tipping point. The company thanked me for my courage in coming forward. They also offered to publicly clear my name with a letter of commendation and a formal apology, which they were willing to share with my new clients if I requested it. I declined the public part. I didn't need validation. I had already won where it mattered. But the apology? That I accepted. Closure doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it arrives in a sealed envelope, typed, stamped, and polite, but still meaningful. Megan never reached out again after the divorce. She moved out of town, from what I heard, went to live with her sister in Colorado. I never asked for details. The past belonged in the past. I didn't wish her harm, but I didn't carry her with me either. Letting go wasn't just an emotional choice. It was a lifestyle. I rebuilt my circle too. Friends who showed up when it mattered stayed close. The ones who vanished when things got hard, I didn't chase them. It's funny how betrayal has a way of cleaning house. You find out who's in your corner and who was just standing close for convenience. One unexpected twist came in the form of someone I hadn't planned on meeting. Her name was Lydia. We met at a business networking brunch. Nothing romantic, just a casual event I almost skipped. She was there representing a boutique marketing firm, confident, grounded, smart. We exchanged cards, not numbers. I didn't expect to hear from her again. But a week later, she reached out. Not for business, but for coffee. It was the first time I said yes to something personal since the divorce. I wasn't sure I was ready, but something about her made me curious. There was no pressure in the conversation. No hidden agenda. Just 2 people learning each other's stories. On our second coffee meeting, I told her the whole truth. Not just the headlines, but the human parts, the pain, the shock, the quiet strength I had to find when everything fell apart. I wasn't trying to impress her, I just wanted to be honest. She listened. No judgment, no poor you expression. Just empathy. Then she told me her story. Turns out we both knew what betrayal felt like. Hers came in the form of a business partner who cleaned out their shared account and disappeared overseas. Different kind of heartbreak, but the same flavor of loss. That shared wound created a strange kind of connection. We started seeing each other more regularly. Dinner, walks, deep conversations, no rush, no labels. One night, as we walked along the waterfront, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. You don't have to be afraid of love just because someone else used it to hurt you. She was right. I didn't need to guard my heart forever. I just needed to be careful about who I gave it to. By the time our 6-month mark rolled around, I wasn't just healed. I was happy. Genuinely happy. Not the fake social media kind, but the kind where you wake up in the morning and feel safe in your own skin. That peace meant more than anything. I no longer replayed the day I walked in on Megan and Ryan. It had stopped being a wound. It became a chapter, a lesson, a turning point. Without it, I might have stayed stuck. Without it, I might have kept settling. Without it, I wouldn't have built the life I now loved. Sometimes the worst day of your life cracks open the path to your best one. People from my old job reached out now and then, telling me how things had shifted since Ryan left. A healthier culture, a more transparent leadership style. One colleague even told me, "Man, I don't know how you kept it together back then, but I'm glad you did. You made it better for the rest of us." That comment stayed with me, because in a world where people often suffer in silence, speaking up isn't just about justice, it's about changing the culture for those who come next. By the end of the year, I was invited to speak at a local business seminar about ethics, leadership, and workplace integrity. I hesitated at first. Public speaking wasn't exactly my strength, but I accepted. And standing in front of that room full of professionals, sharing the story of how personal betrayal collided with professional ethics, I realized something powerful. What happened to me wasn't just unfortunate. It was useful. It was a story that reminded people to pay attention, to listen to their gut, to fight for themselves even when it's uncomfortable. That talk became the first of many. I never named names. I never made it about revenge. I made it about resilience. And somehow, in the process of telling my story, I helped others rewrite theirs. Life didn't return to what it was before. It became something better. I still wake up early. I still cook my own meals. I still go running before the world is awake. Only now when I come home, someone is waiting. Lydia, a woman who didn't break me to love me. She met me in my second chapter and showed me I didn't have to reread the first one to move forward. Looking back, I don't regret coming home early that day, because that moment, as painful as it was, saved me from living a life built on lies. It forced me to rebuild, to stand tall, to remember who I was. So if you're reading this, wondering how to recover from the betrayal that gutted you, let me tell you this. You don't have to yell to reclaim your power. You don't have to burn bridges to walk away. You don't even need closure from the people who hurt you. All you need is a quiet moment, a brave decision, and a reminder that your peace is worth protecting. Because in the end, the most powerful thing I ever did wasn't catching them. It was choosing myself. And that, more than anything, changed everything.